So I want to start out with one quick, easy, hanging curveball question for B. How has workplace giving transformed in the past decade, and how is that change accelerating? So go for it.
Thank you, Tom. Perfect. Dropped all my notes. I have no idea what I'm going to say next. Well, actually, I'll send people to your blog, which answers that really well, the shifting sands. So I think there's a lot of change, and a lot of people have talked about what has changed and said it very well. I want to focus on one aspect of the change that I think is the most productive moving forward. But those of you that know me know that I don't do things in any regular way, so I'm gonna do this in the form of a demo. Okay? So I'm gonna share with you some little known research, little known findings out there. It turns out that depending on the kind of ice cream that you like, it says something about you, okay? So if you like chocolate-based ice cream, you're a different person than if you like vanilla-based ice cream. So I'm gonna ask you to choose what kind of ice cream you prefer, okay? Now, if you don't like ice cream, then don't admit it, because that's a really bad sign. You might not be human, okay? So if you don't like ice cream, just choose whichever one you would like if you liked ice cream, okay? So if you like vanilla-based ice cream, go ahead and stand up. Vanilla-based ice cream, okay. So, very nice. So you like vanilla-based ice cream, and what this says about you is that you are concerned about meaning. You are concerned about purpose in life. So congratulations, go ahead and sit down, that's great. Okay, very nice, give yourself a hand. Okay. Now, if you like chocolate-based ice cream, go ahead and stand up. Only two choices, chocolate-based ice cream.
What about strawberry?
Okay, so if you like chocolate-based ice cream, then what this says about you is that you are deeply, deeply concerned about money, 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 and nothing else. Okay? Did you know this? Okay, obviously I made this up, okay? So that's really good. There's the big researcher up there, and she's making stuff up. Okay, so that would be a really unjust thing to say. That would be a really ridiculous generalization. It would be an insulting generalization. And yet we do this as a society. We don't do it based on ice cream, but we do it on something equally arbitrary, another preference. So if you're a kid and you like that game, when you're a kid you played Operation, and then you grow up to become a physician, then as a society we go, oh, you want to do something with meaning, you want to do societal good, you're a doctor, good for you. If you as a kid, what you liked was like to take napkins and cut with scissors and make a dress, and then you grow up to become a fashion designer, then as a society we go, oh, the only thing you care about is money and success. And so the Maslow hierarchy, remember Maslow, the basic needs, money, shelter, food, and then in the middle is success, and then the top is self-actualization. For corporate workers, we've cut it at the middle. Most corporate workers don't have the opportunity to do something deeply meaningful at work. So the shift, I think, and it's obvious from the conversation here today, is that realization that is going on. That realization that 7 out of 10 employees worldwide are disengaged. That means they don't want to go into work. That means they don't put any discretionary additional effort into work. They don't really care if their company does well. 7 out of 10. So the shift, I think, is seeing workplace giving, workplace community involvement as the solution to that. And I think we're just beginning to see that. It used to be that workplace giving was just a convenience. You could think about giving once a year and it was handled, and that's what it was. Now, in every single presentation, somebody has said employee engagement. And so I think that the fundamental shift that is happening is that we are realizing that workplace giving is actually meeting a human yearning for meaning. Maslow didn't say, humans aspire to self-actualization at the top of the pyramid unless you're unless you're a mechanic, or unless you're a pilot, or no, it's actually true for all humans. So I see that as the biggest shift in workplace giving, is making it that much more pertinent to us as humans that enter the workplace, that we now see it as a hope for giving people a meaningful existence at work. Would you add anything, Rebecca?
I think that was a really great demo, first of all. I don't care all about money all the time. But hey, it's important to me. No, I totally agree with that. And the way that HP's program, whether it's giving, especially in the volunteering space, I think it has definitely evolved from a convenience thing that we provide to our employees, 300,000 employees around the globe. That alone has its challenges, but that it's an opportunity for them to connect with a cause that provides a lot of meaning to them, as well as connect with the causes that are important to HP. So through workplace giving, coming from that really traditional United Way campaign, November, the cards will be on your desk, and Dave Packard and Bill Hewlett are going to come around and collect those cards. And I think that was really true. They were walking around on the plant floor in the offices saying, hand over your cards, to offering that online and making it a very open campaign through federations, to now offering the ability to give at certain times, but throughout the year, on specific causes, and then connecting that all back through our volunteering program as well, so that you can, we have a different Dollars for Doers program than many of you, and I'll go into that in a little bit more detail later on. But that it all kind of feeds into each other in this ecosystem that happens all the time, and it's about, that periodic giving throughout the year, but it's also connected to the things that you do as an employee, giving your time and your skills. So it's a journey that we continue to be on. I wouldn't say that we've mastered anything at this point, but certainly feel like we are moving in a direction that makes a better connection to the employee. And I'm going to reference Derek's presentation earlier this morning. Of course, I don't have my notes from there, but the ability to give the millennials and across all of our employees the opportunity to feel like what they think is important can also be important and supported by our company was one key takeaway that from Derek's presentation. So it's I'm glad that we are on this journey, and with the help of Bea and some of her thinking and guidance around that, we'll continue to refine and make it better.
Can I ask, how has that changed over, say, the last decade? How much of that was driven by the employees, and how much of that was driven by, your strategy, the actual company saying we have to move towards this?
Yeah, very clearly, at least 10 or so more years ago, like I mentioned before, the United Way campaign, that was just a given. The CEO said, we are doing this, and that's what we will always do. As many of you have evolved from that model, doing that in the fall, November was the big time. We have also evolved. I would say about 8 years ago, maybe 9 years ago, the company then moved on to an open and federated campaign online, And it's a constant feedback loop with our employees. When I started about 4 years ago, it was trying to understand what exactly about this model, this campaign, that you like and don't like. And I'm sure most of you do that as well. After every campaign or every episode of the program, you want to understand from your employees what was good, what was not good, how can we improve? And we started seeing the same patterns of responses. It may have been that we were limited to change because of budget, the bandwidth of our team. When we said I was part of a small and mighty team, there are 3 of us managing a global program. And 300,000 employees. The ratio there, 100,000 employees to 1 manager, just doesn't make sense. But, so there's a point when you can do things, and then you can kind of make things happen. So it was definitely driven by the employees within the last 8-9 years. They need to see things happen faster. That feedback loop that Derek was talking about too, it's got to be there. You know, what happened to my money? What happened? What is the? Okay, I'm not supposed to say the word impact. What difference did I make when I made my donation? So to us, it's becoming an ever more important thing to give that donor, that volunteer, the feedback, to know that they did make a difference.
Do you want to add to that?
So Richard Branson, you know, the CE, Virgin everything, I guess. I don't know. Virgin. Anyway, he did all this research before Virgin Atlantic, before he started Virgin Atlantic, and on what people wanted about in their travel experiences. And he asked, you know, are you interested in a lounge that serves 5-star food and you can get a massage and, you know, has quiet music before you get on your flight? And people said overwhelmingly, no. Are you kidding me? That, you know, they didn't see the connection to flying. And he did it anyway. And he explained, people sometimes don't know what's around the corner, that they got to take a corner to get to a better place. And so I think Rebecca's being a little modest here, because they have really courageous leadership in terms of pushing programs forward that maybe sometimes originally employees don't get. So like Scope-a-thons, for example. So I think that, you know, it's true that employee giving can help any employee get to the top of Maslow's hierarchy. You know, feel like their job has meaning, feel like they have a purpose when they go into work. But it's typically, and this is a finding, this is a hard finding, we have this, it's typically not the experiences, the volunteer experiences that employees do on their own. So if you ask employees, what do you want? They're like, well, you know, I really, really like saving, you know, albino reptiles. That's what I want to do. And they want to bring that to the workplace. But what HP has learned is that the programs that have the biggest boost in morale and engagement are the ones that actually link back to the work experience. So it's the ones that use workplace skills. This is a statistical finding. It's actually in here.
And what is that you're waving?
It is the social impact scorecard from HP. So, and if you didn't get one of these, if you give me a compliment, I'll send you the PDF. So any compliment will do. Just
tweet
anything
those compliments
nice. Yes, exactly. Tweet those compliments down. I know that I don't think there were enough, so we'll get this to you. But one of the findings here is that so if you participate in HP organized volunteering, if you do the volunteering on your own, it doesn't work. Your morale is going to be higher, but it's even higher if you use your workplace skills. So I think that while it's true that, you know, a lot of aspects of your program should respond to employee needs, I also think it's like, don't be afraid to think further ahead than where employees are. So I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, one program that I didn't mention, and I think some of you might be interested in understanding, is our employee product grant program, because it is fairly unique in that it's a kind of different version of matching, essentially. So we use, or we partner with Good 360 to offer this year-round giving program. And it's essentially allowing employees to donate 25% of the cost of an HP product, and we will match the remaining 75% to that eligible nonprofit or school. And it is typically going to schools. So that gives them the opportunity to give in a different way that I think, again, has more meaning and makes that connection to the workplace. So we've evolved that as well to have a really very popular group functionality where even in times of disaster, we've seen employees come together, again, going back to Derek's comment in the very beginning about how can we influence each other. So that these groups of employees will come together with a common cause and together pool their donations to donate HP product. And that has definitely been a growing and very popular program.
So let's talk about the research that you've taken on. Let's kind of delve into the numbers. We promised those earlier. We want to deliver on those. Why did HP decide to conduct this level of research? Why did the company feel that was, that was the wise thing to do? And how did you go about conducting the research? It's a question for both of you. In case you haven't noticed, they finish each other's sentences.
We've worked together for the last 3+ years, so I know. And she slaps me back. That's okay. That's getting a little kinky. All right, so we're gonna.
It's the end of the day, folks.
End of the day. I know you've worked with Edna for much longer, so you and Chris can do your little spiel later. So, as many of you who are program managers delivering these programs year after year, you know that you've got to produce some kind of report, or what is the ROI of the program, and beyond those typical outcomes that you see on the scorecard. You probably have your own version of the scorecard: number of volunteers, number of hours, money donated. We needed to go deeper because when our team started, it was essentially a really new team, completely different philosophy from years before when it was corporate philanthropy, social investment, whatever you wanted to call it. We were really starting fresh. And that to us really opened the floodgates, like what can we do? How can we show that our approach is going to be really different? And we very quickly brought on B to help us think through what are those metrics, what are the outcomes that we want to show our leadership. And at that same time, perhaps for those of you who are not living in a rabbit hole, HP was going through some turbulence. I
do remember that.
CEO after CEO after CEO. And we're now fairly stable, but we are still in a major turnaround. And everything we do has to be justified. And to us, that meant diving deeper into why are we delivering these programs? How is it really making a difference to the community, not just the community, but to our company and to our employees, which is why having these engagement results were, I think, really eye-opening, not necessarily a surprise to us, and maybe I'm jumping ahead to some of these questions, but the fact that a skills-based and pro bono volunteer opportunity can have a greater positive impact to an employee's engagement with the company, then hands-on volunteering should not have been a real surprise. It was, we kind of celebrated, clicked our heels in the background because we've been really committed in trying to drive that type of volunteering for the last 3+ years. And the fact that it was not that they were doing this work on their own, but that it was an HP organized program like our Scope-a-thon, like our HP Advisors program, like our Social Innovation Relay. I'm just throwing these names out. You don't know what they are, but we'll go into them a little bit later. This is really what made the scores jump. I don't know if you want to go into some of the data.
Yeah, go into some of the data.
Be careful what you ask for, because
We
I'm
need
a
some
nerd.
data. We need some
Okay.
data.
So this is actually ridiculously replicable, okay, what HP did. So the first thing is your company has some workplace survey, probably happens between June and September. It's called Voice of the Workforce or Employee Opinion Survey or something like that. All you need to do is put one question in there about participation, level of participation in company organized. I can't tell you, this is not just HP. This has been true of every company that I've looked at. So if employees volunteer on their own, no engagement effect. It didn't happen at UL, it didn't happen at Caesars Entertainment, it didn't happen at Apollo Group. So what really works for employees is if you organize the event, if it has a link back, and ideally it's a team event. So what you do is you put this one question. HP is really generous with their stuff, and they will share the question into that EOS survey or whatever it is, and then bingo, okay, you will get this type of information. So for example, and again, at other companies, the results have been comparable. With company-sponsored events, motivation is 17% higher among employees who participate, okay? Seeing morale is 13% higher, retention 12% higher. So when these results were presented to the HR folks, I mean, their eyes popped out. They were like, oh my God, this is like, we never expected that this little program with 3 people would have such a major effect on engagement. So that's one finding. Okay, so now, there's somebody in here that is going, but, that doesn't tell you, what doesn't it tell you? There's always somebody who points this out. Anybody? Are you guys asleep? Are you there? Okay. So what it doesn't point out is causality, right? So because it could be that the employees that decided to volunteer were the ones that were higher engagement. So then if you want to get more sophisticated than this, then it's also ridiculously easy, but it will take you 13 months to do it. And again, HP will share their survey with you. So all you need to do is measure engagement 12 months apart, the engagement questions, whatever they are for your company, and then compare it, the people who weren't engaged at the beginning to those who became engaged during the year. So for those who are nerds, this is called quasi-experimental design, and again, it's ridiculously easy to do. It's not that hard to do. And we presented it to 2 academics so far, and they're like, we want the data, we want the data, we want to write the journal article on it. So it's a pretty rigorous proof that actually what you are doing, giving employees opportunities to participate in workplace volunteering, really does cause, i.e. lead to the change in engagement. So we know that at HP, this is the case. So if you've got 2, for example, let's say we have 2 HP employees here. They're really low morale in fiscal year 12 for who knows what reason, you know. Probably personality or something. So anyway, so a year later, Tom's morale is higher. It's a little bit higher because HP's in the middle of a turnaround. But Rebecca's morale is much higher. It went all the way to 5. It's 50% higher than Tom's was at that point. So what's the difference between these two employees?
Chocolate ice cream.
Somebody remembers something about this presentation. Not the right thing, but the difference is, Rebecca, what did you do in the interim year?
Well, I just happen to be a project manager, and I'm based in Slovakia. I logged on to the Scopathon program and hooked up with, on our new online platform, and was matched with this social entrepreneur who's launching this great water purification business. And I coached her in coming up with her marketing plan to develop this business. So I'm just making up these parameters, but that is the type of thing that we do. Jane has a question. Are we holding off on questions?
If people have questions,
Jane, ask a question. Jane from Verizon Foundation.
Do you know how many interactions or activities you need to have that employee participate in before you start to see the jump?
good data question.
That is such a good question. Okay, so when you asked me for the question, and I'm happy to send it to you again, HP is really good about sharing their information. But one thing I learned the hard way is that if employees participate in only one event a year, the effect might not be there. So there's something magical about the repeat. So the question Jane asked is fantastic, because what you want to do is you want to say, did you participate in so this is the question that goes in your all-employee survey, right? Because once you have that question in there, then what you can do is compare those who didn't participate in any, those who participated in one event, those who participated in 2, and those that organized events, for example. That might be one way to do it. Then you can compare their engagement, their morale, their sense of teamwork, their pride. You can compare all of that. So Jane, the short answer is twice. At 2, then the results start. At 1, there's a difference, but it's typically not statistically significant, and I'm not going to go into that. If that means something to you, great. If it doesn't, don't worry about it. But 2 is the magic number. Okay, and there's not much difference between 2 and 3 and 4, but from 1 to 2, there's a big leap. So, and if anybody can explain that, that would be great.
So, this data is fantastic. What did HP do with it? And on top of that, the data's so great, how come there's still only 3 of you?
You're going to have to ask Meg Whitman. Why are there only 3 of us? Yeah. Well, because we do such a good job at 3. Why do they need more?
You approached the data too well. It's because you had a great consultant.
Yeah, exactly. So let's continue with this pro bono program, because the scoping program is a perfect example. Last year I had 4 of these events. They were November, February, June, and August. And I got, almost 200 project managers involved. There were 21 plus countries, all these social entrepreneurs and nonprofit leaders. But I tell you, I probably could have gotten a lot more than that people involved, because the constant feedback I received was, could I do it like at a different time? It just doesn't meet my schedule. Or the nonprofit CEO or executive director said, no, okay, we're just about to finish our strategic plan. If I came back to you in a month, can I participate? And that was like, duh! Let's just create this ongoing program. It takes all the event management off of my plate, because I'm going to put it onto a platform, and I'm going to allow people to match up themselves, and it's going to be beautiful, right? It will be beautiful. So this feeds into itself based on the survey we got from the project managers who were involved in these scoping programs. They said, when's the next one? This 2 to 3 hours that I spent with the social entrepreneur, with the nonprofit leader, was really cool. I didn't think in that short amount of time, I could make them realize how different they could change, they could operate. This one quote that I got, or this one comment I got from the CEO of a local nonprofit in the Bay Area, said, after his 2-3 hour session with the project manager, he said, wow, he took all of the emotion away from my decision making. He used this, it was essentially a spreadsheet, laid it all out for me, and it was clear what the path was that I needed to take as a leader for my organization. They essentially changed their whole sales model and development around how they deliver their programs. So it was this constant, when's the next thing? And can't wait until June, it's not a good time, da, da, da. So now I am making that into an ongoing thing using, again, the power of technology.
So the data that you got changed the program?
Yeah, absolutely, because it was clear that first of all, that it was a pro bono, a skills-based opportunity driven by HP, that they really felt that it was really a cool way to take, or from the employee side, their core business skills that they're being paid for by HP to really change how the nonprofits can operate. It was really fantastic.
Sure.
So here's the problem with data. It's great, it's necessary, yada yada, but no one ever marched because of a pie chart. So I love data, as you can tell, but it definitely has its limitations. So I think that the times I've seen the findings really move people, it takes the story, and several people have said that up here. So it actually takes the story with the quant information. And the other thing I'll say is that, I'm hugely impressed by the conversation that has happened in this room, because now it's like a given. It's like, well, this is great for employee engagement. Well, this is a given in this room, but you've probably discovered that at your companies, they're like, what? It has nothing to do, those are two different worlds for the most part. And I think that a lot of companies think that the first time, they produce this graph, when one bar is this high and the other bar is this low, and they see the difference, they're gonna go like, oh my God, yeah, let's triple the budget, this is incredible. And I think that does happen over time. Manulife Financial in Canada is an example of exactly that happening, but it took them 4 years, because we humans don't work that way. We're not convinced the first time we see something. There's a whole curve on how change happens called the Rogers Innovation Curve. The only people that will hear you to begin with when you say something radical, and this is radical, are what's called the innovators in society. That's about 3% of the population. So that means you're gonna fail with 97% of the people of convincing them with this data point and your story that that really what you're doing can help with the bottom line. Because more engaged employees, depending on the research, make between 15% or 41% more income for the company. So this has a direct bottom line impact, but the first time they hear it, 97% of people out there won't believe it. Then 3% will believe it, they're called the innovators, and then they will convince the next group on the bell curve. I guess the bell curve goes this way for you guys. The next group on the bell curve, who are called the early adopters. Only about 13% of people are early adopters. That takes a while. The early adopters can't hear it from you, they can only hear it from the innovators. And then the rest, which is the early majority and the late majority, they're not gonna listen to you. The innovators are too radical and crazy for them. They have to wait for the early adopters to adopt it. And so most Rogers innovation curves take 3 to 4 years. So The data is great, but it's essential to changing the attitudes towards your work, but I just want to warn you that it takes time, and it takes the stories as well as the data, so.
We need to talk about some of these programs that we've teased here, but we haven't really fully described. And in the context of that, the idea of engaging employees year-round. And you've already talked about engaging them in sort of job-specific ways, using their skills. So I know you have a couple of slides. You want to take us through a couple of those programs.
Okay, so I'm going to take the power, okay? I'm going to move the slides. Okay, I'm going to start off with a new initiative that we just launched 3 weeks ago. It's called Matter to a Million, and we partnered, the HP Company Foundation partnered with Kiva.org. Many of you may recognize that. They're the micro-lending organization. They're based in San Francisco. And the thinking was, let's give our employees, with our scope and scale, the opportunity to support a social entrepreneur anywhere around the globe. The HP Company Foundation gave every employee $25 to give, to loan. And the goal was to get, 10%. Can we get 10% of our employees to make a loan to a social entrepreneur? Within the first 2 weeks, we had 20% participation. And just a few days ago, I think we hit over $2.7 million in loans to social entrepreneurs. We worked with Kiva to make sure that this was not going to break their servers. I mean, we didn't really know what the impact, I used that word, impact, the result would be, but this was gangbusters. And people were like suspicious. Okay, so I'm going to go on here, and you're really going to give me $25 to donate? And then they went through the process, and they're like, are you sure this isn't my money? And they were starting to use the PayPal process. No, this is your $25. And if you loan within the first 48, you get another $25. And it's just fed onto itself. And we've hit all of our milestones early. Kiva, this is a quote from Premal Shah, the CEO. He says, this is a game-changing initiative for their organization. I'm hoping that, so maybe one of you companies out there can see, you could change the way that your employees can support their particular social entrepreneur as well. And I think, I'm just keep going back to Derek's presentation this morning, because it really hit home for me that in this particular initiative, we are allowing, through this connection with our company, employees the opportunity to give through this cause. It may not all of them be embracing the cause of social entrepreneurship, but a good number of them sure are, and it might be the first time that they've ever been engaged with our company. To give them the opportunity to loan to a social entrepreneur, and the fact that there's this one-to-one relationship, remember Derek mentioned that as well? It's an individual thing. Wow, I'm the one really changing this person's life. So that's one example of how we're doing it. It is going to be a 5-year partnership with them.
5-year commitment?
5-year commitment. It's an $8 million commitment. So we are well on our way. Almost $3 million loaned within the first month.
Do you have stats yet on how many people have reinvested that 25?
Yeah, that's going to be my colleague Marlon will do that. In fact, I know we've got something happening next week with Premal, so he's get that data for him.
When my daughter turned 16, I gave her a couple of Kiva, like $50 or something like that. And she's 21 now. She's going to graduate from college next month. She's reinvested it every time. And that's the only thing she posts on Facebook now. She'll put nothing else on there except for that. Yeah.
That is fantastic. I made my loan to, I was born in the Philippines, and I made my loan, went directly to the Philippines region and filtered by this person. I just thought it was so cool that I could give to my, country. So to me, it made a real connection. Okay, let's talk a little bit about some of these other programs. The scoping program, I talked about that. I'm going to mention another skills-based opportunity that we are launching kind of in this ecosystem with our scoping program. So we want to have, I want to have this end-to-end solution for our nonprofit leaders and social entrepreneurs that through this platform, through this engagement, they will work with a project manager to really refine and better articulate their business issue that they want to resolve. And once they go through that process, they'll move into a mentoring relationship with an HP employee. So for the course of, say, 2 or 3 months, they will get the guidance and the coaching from one of our employees, as well as that initial kind of assistance in the refining of their business issues, so that there is this progression for them to enable them to then resolve that business issue. Through this platform and ongoing program, we want to give these leaders and the social entrepreneurs the ability to change the way they operate, improve the way they operate. And this is part of that HP mentoring program that I mentioned. There's an initiative that we created called HP Life that enables any entrepreneur, again, it's around the globe, to come in and get free training, online training through our platform to learn new business skills, technical skills, and as they progress in the development of their own social enterprise and business, they will go through this end-to-end solution with our project managers and our HP mentors. So that's our HP Life program. I mentioned this earlier with Good 360. We have the Employee Product Grant Program, which happens throughout the year, and it's been very successful. Within a week, our budget gets shut. I mean, it just gets eaten up through the individual donations of products as well as the group products or group functionality. We've now embedded it into our Adopt a School program with our US sites, where if they can take 50 employees at baseline, $10 each, I mean, really, that's not that big of a deal. Again, through an HP selected adopted school that's local to our site, they donate the product, they then take the product and they'll spend a collection of 100 hours across the team, which would then enable, through our math, $15,000 worth of technology and time to that school. So that's done in the US. And you can see here, this one is with a school in East Palo Alto, close to where we are. Oh, okay. The one slide that I don't have that's around our global giving partnership. It's our version of Dollars for Doers, where we allow, this is total honor system, any employee to report 10 plus hours of volunteer service. It doesn't matter what service it is. It's on personal time, HP time. When you report 10 hours of service during a calendar quarter, you will receive a $50 gift code, which you then donate to that eligible charity or nonprofit that's in the system. There's no verification of time needed from the nonprofit. You get to choose whether you give it to the same organization where you did your volunteer service or completely different organization. It's really empowering, giving the power over to the employee to make that gift as a result.
Terrific.
So those are just a quick overview.
And those are 12 months out of the year. So it's not, it's not just the annual.
There's no annual campaign anymore. We kick things off again in November, but it's just one of those, I don't know if you like the word benefit, but one of those benefits that employees get as a result of being an employee. So you have a question, sir? Oh, right. So it's every calendar quarter you get a $50 gift code. So the cap in terms of our budget is that $200 for the year per employee.
We're going to go to Q&A now, but I know B has to. She's been nudging me over here. She's got one.
Just one. So one of the great things about HP, I think, and looking at data is that they're not just asking, does this work for business, but what works best for business? What employee community engagement works best? So I just want to share just one piece of information from that. But again, you guys know I'm kind of odd in the way I do things. So, okay, everybody stand up. Okay. Find a partner. Find a partner. Okay. Take something off that's on you. Okay. Woo! Okay. So it can't be your name tag. That's way too easy. Come on, that's a low hanging fruit. Okay, give it to your partner. Whatever you get, put it on. Okay. Whatever you get, put it on. Whatever you get, put it on. Anybody want to show off? Very nice, Chris. Anybody want to show off? Very nice. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to ask you 2 questions. Okay. So just your answer can be yes or no. Okay. So just shout it out. Okay. Does it fit?
No.
Does it match?
Sort of.
Okay. So here is the learning from HP's research. Some volunteering fits your company's context. Some employee volunteering does, and some does not. It's hit or miss if you just let, volunteering go any which way, okay? Some volunteering will match your company's culture and resonate with it, and some will not. So if the examples that Rebecca gave, especially the volunteer ones, so there's some things that we know. If it's company organized, yes, it leads to engagement. If it's not going to help with engagement. So don't think that if you just give employees paid time off and they go off and they use it individually, it's going to do anything for engagement. So just know that going in. Second, the closer it is to their day job, believe it or not, the greater the engagement. So if it uses their skills, the engagement goes up. If they learned about it from their supervisor, so if their supervisor said, hey, let's go do this, then it's going to work better for the HR outcomes. That's what we're talking about here. Maybe you enhance their lives in other ways if you promote other types of volunteering. But when we're talking about helping employees get to the top of the Maslow hierarchy in the workplace, it needs to resonate with their workplace experience. At HP, if it's in one of the cause areas, so entrepreneurship, environment, health, and education, the effect is stronger, again, because it resonates. So I think that we have this tendency, and there's this discussion out there going, well, we should just support employees in whatever they do on their own time. But the data is actually suggesting, and actually there's academic data from academics like Pelosa that say the same thing. The data is suggesting the opposite. Bring the employee volunteer opportunities closer to their work experience. Don't have the volunteering be a contrast to their work. I have one client that this happened to, where they designed this great volunteer opportunity, and as it turned out, what it led was for employees to leave, because they were like, oh my God, what I loved most was that 1 week, and that 1 week is what meant the most, so I'm gonna leave the company and go work for a nonprofit. So you don't want, by comparison, their day job to look dull, okay? So the finding here is make sure it matches your company culture, make sure it fits with, it resonates with the company. And I've suspected this for a long time, and it's actually thanks to HP. There's hard data showing this now. Now it would be great if we got a whole bunch of other companies to test this and look at it. So okay, whatever you got, you can keep. Okay.
I think we have a couple of minutes for questions. But only a couple. Who has some questions? Question back there? Questions for the incredible HP team?
Christine Newman, Bristol Myers Squibb Foundation. Thank you. I really enjoyed the panel today. I just have kind of a technical, logistical question regarding the suggestion to add that one question onto the annual employee survey. So at our company, and I would imagine at a lot of companies, that survey is confidential to get employees to actually answer truthfully. So how are you tracking, is at HP the annual survey not confidential?
It is, it's anonymous.
Okay, so then how are you tracking at the individual level then to see, Tom didn't volunteer last year, but he did volunteer this year?
Yeah, that was a separate survey. God, somebody was paying attention.
Good question.
That was a separate survey, but that's very replicable too. And again, HP is happy to share that survey with you. Yep.
Well, I've got the microphone. Steve Delphin with America's Charities. Rebecca, so I'm going to ask the obvious question. What happened with your annual giving campaign in terms of results? Or now your year-round giving campaign in terms of results?
Yeah, we have now an ongoing campaign. It launched, again, we kind of kick it off in November because we all know that in the US, that's when it's time to give.
The giving season.
The giving season, exactly, and where you'll see a lot of that taking place. However, there's this other giving season, especially in California. It's tends to be a very long season, April through November, almost. So it is practically around where these causes are. My friend's got this cause. He's riding in this ride. My friend has this cause. She's doing a walk. It's this constant.
The outdoor time they're doing it. Yeah.
Yeah, there's really all year round is an outdoor time in California. So we've
true here.
We've seen that and are now really trying to leverage that because we'd like to see our participation rates go higher. I think right now we're less than 30% for our campaign, our giving campaign. We need it to go much higher. In contrast, these gift codes that we give through Global Giving, 50% redemption of these codes. I mean, that's one of the highest rates that Global Giving has among their clients. So we'd like to see that go higher as well.
Hi, I've got a quick question. Have you seen any adverse effects with caps to the giving? Or any inverse effects that people stop after a while? We have a large employee base, right?
Yeah, Kabir, let everybody know how many employees you have in the U.S.
We have 1.4 million. I'm with Walmart.
He's with Walmart.
Can only have been a couple of us.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. What has been the negative effect of our cap is $1,000 per employee, so it's not that high. We don't have a different cap for our executives. Everybody gets $1,000. I mean, we are taking a look at how that might play in terms of participation rate, but I think that we need to get to a higher participation rate first of newer employees before we even think about doing a $2,000, $3,000, or $5,000 limit. Has anyone have a comment around that?
Question.
Somewhat related to the question that was asked a moment ago, in terms of the cause-related and the company-sponsored activities and the impact it has on volunteerism and engagement, is anything similar being seen with the more open, broader campaigns, where there isn't necessarily a defined relationship or a suggested relationship of some kind with the organization and the employees, as far as we'll support you in your gifts related to, you know, gifts made to XYZ organization, versus it being broad and open and selected choice by employees? I don't know if you understand the question, but are you seeing similar kinds of shifts at all? Because it's gone so broad and so open, that has that had a negative impact on payroll giving, or do you see it having an opposite in comparison to the volunteering?
Well, I can respond the impact vis-a-vis the HR engagement scores and morale scores, and also intention to stay scores. So this might come across as really bad news to this room, but we haven't tested this at HP, so talk to us in November and hopefully we'll have data on this. But in the companies that I have looked at, whether there is a similar uptick in engagement, morale, intention to stay, when they participate in a giving campaign, it's not there. So it's a great gateway, but it's kind of like volunteering once. If you haven't had time during the year to get them involved the second time, if you haven't had time to do one more thing with them rather than just doing the giving campaign, even with the match, it doesn't affect the HR outcomes. And there's one company where it's public, UL, Underwriters Laboratories, they're fine sharing that, but it's been replicated at 3 other companies the same way. It's just that their findings aren't public. So I'm not saying that it doesn't enhance the lives of these employees. I'm sure it does. It's a great perk. US employees in particular expect it. It probably shows up in positive ways in other places, and by God, it does a ton of good for these nonprofits. But when it comes to that conversation around employee engagement, the effect has not shown up to be there. And it doesn't matter whether it's closed or open, apparently. So, because 2 of these companies, it was wide open and it still didn't, and one it was closed and it still didn't.
So I would agree with that. I think giving is more of a benefit, but when you consider your time, that's where the engagement. So would you say that is different for volunteering when you limit the choices? Does that increase your engagement, or would you say it's analogous?
Well,
the analogy's there.
That's a great question. Okay, so I don't think you should limit choices of volunteering. I actually think, HP supports all sorts of volunteering with the gift cards, any type of volunteering. But it does seem like if you're going to have signature events that you're going to just direct employees towards, try to make sure that they make sense for the company. So that they're team-based, that they, if you're a bank, financial literacy probably resonates well. That from the employee's point of view, it's work integrated. It's not that it's a contrast to their job. It's that it's an enhancement, or it's a way of making their job deeper, or it's a way of enriching their everyday job. From their perspective, they see the link. So it's just, that's where the HR outcomes are. But I think that in reality, to only offer employees skills-based volunteering that is completely on target, and the only thing it does for people is financial literacy. If there's a disaster, I'm so sorry, you can't help. Don't do that. Don't eliminate choices. It's just, where to put in which basket to put the eggs if you want the HR business case. Where to look for that business case. So I don't know if that, and the answer to your question is yes, certain type of volunteering works much better, but I'm not saying that therefore you you should slap any employee who wants to do something, related to albino reptiles. You should have something that supports them, especially in the U.S. Actually.
I have one good example of that. Within our finance organization, we offer the opportunity to give their pro bono, their skills pro bono. I was just on a call last week where our Bay Area finance team, these volunteers are selected by our core team. In any case, these 3-4 people have developed this pricing model for a local museum in San Francisco. And at the end of the presentation, there was oohs and ahs and like, aha, that kind of thing with the nonprofit organization. And the last comment by the team members, the volunteers, was, it took maybe 12 hours of their time within the last 3 months to pull all of this together. And he said, I have to tell you, these 12 hours, 15 hours, whatever it was, were the most amazing 12 hours I've spent as an HP employee in a long time. And to have this opportunity to really provide my skill in a really different capacity for an organization that completely lacked the resources was, you could hear it in his voice. It was really a game changer for him. And can't wait to do the next one. So I'm jumping on that. He's going to get on board for another project.
Hi. I'm not sure how many employees you have worldwide, but I was wondering whether there was any difference in the data in terms of the effects of the different initiatives, whether they were US-based or overseas.
No, I have a feeling Rebecca's going to ask me to do that analysis.
Next year's report.
We haven't looked at it, actually, but we really should.
That's a good question.
Okay, yeah, get back to us.
We're going to cut the questions at this point, but I actually have one. No, this is for everybody. How can companies formally participate in this survey? Is there a process? How can we make that available to people?
HP shares the survey. It has a skip logic. You can ask me how it works. So you can really just take and run with it. And then if you get stuck, then call me and I will help you. It's really that simple. There might be an opportunity for this organization to kind of proceed with this collectively if there's any interest in that, and I'd be happy to guide it forward. So, a group of interested companies, if there's 10 companies that are like, well, I want to have that on my scorecard next year, just working together over the next year to get to the point where you can have that data for your company rather than saying, look, at HP this happened, it's probably happening here. You can say it's happening here. If there's any interest in that, we'd be happy to help with that.
I know some of you in the room are members of the Points of Light Corporate Service Council, and so HP is part of the research collaborative, looking at, can we as a collective group come up with some standard measurements beyond the outputs, these real outcomes that we're trying to look at. And if any of you are interested in being a part of that collaborative, let me know.
Terrific. Please join me in thanking Bea and Rebecca.